Good morning to you all, my brothers and sisters. I am honored to be with you today and so happy that we are all present here to engage in dialogue. I bring greetings to you all from the Conrad N. Hilton Foundation, my colleagues, and our board member represented here, representing all other board members. I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to join you for this important gathering. I thank the Catholic Sisters in Legal Profession Network for all the efforts of organizing this conference. I know it is not easy. And also thank you to each one of you for the service you provide in your respective areas to build the mission of the church. The Canon lawyers present, civil lawyers, major superiors, safeguarding professionals, researchers, all our Vatican delegates, and all those entrusted with accompanying religious communities. Your presence here is meaningful and a sign of hope and shared commitment to religious life in Africa. As you have seen in the agenda, this conference is so wide, but I chose to focus on one topic about prophetic witness and safeguarding. The reason I chose to focus on this in my speech today is because through my travels, I have observed, I have listened, and I have engaged with many different stakeholders in different spaces. And I think this is prime topic for our time so that we can accompany each other as we live our prophetic witness. We gather in a spirit of synodality, united in mission, to engage in honest dialogue about religious life, our prophetic law, challenges we face in ministry, our care for those we serve, and practices that must be transformed to foster a culture of protection and well-being for all those who are entrusted to us. As Jesus commissions each one of us to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to captives, recovery of sight to the blind, and to set prisoners free. Luke 4:18. That's our mission. Our conference, therefore, bears a beautiful and challenging title of Prophetic Witness. What is it? In the time I have with you, I would like to reflect on 5 points. The first one, what is prophetic witness, and what does it mean for safeguarding in religious life, the life of the church, and the people we serve? Second, I will reflect on how our own cultures, including the ecclesial cultures, call for honest transformation. Third, I will want to discuss about the impact of abuse, not only on individuals, but also on families and communities. I will also discuss how Conrad N. Hilton Foundation, our Catholic Sisters Initiative, is accompanying this work across different regions. And finally, we have to ask ourselves, what is the call to action? What can each of us do starting today? I have heard this prophetic witness being called, but what is it? Prophetic witness refers to our fidelity in living the gospel, values and virtues. It is standing with those who suffer, walking with them in courage and solidarity, and speaking the truth with love. Prophetic witness calls us to challenge what is unjust, as sisters have said earlier, and to inspire change rooted in God's justice, mercy, and compassion. The psalmist points out, mercy and truth have met, justice and peace have embraced, in Psalm 85. Our prophetic life and voice should serve as a catalyst for transformation in our communities and invites us to reflect on our failures, inner conversion, and reshape our actions for the common good. Reflect on our failures, call for inner conversion, and reshape our actions for the common good. As legal professionals and all those who are here, you place compassion, mercy, truth, and justice at the forefront of your service. These key tenets must guide our work. I would like to turn to the word prophet, which is sometimes misunderstood. We often think of prophets as people who predict the future. Yet throughout the scriptures, prophets did something much more demanding. They looked at the present with God's eyes. They looked at present with God's eyes. They refused to accept as normal what God never intended. They gave voice to those whose suffering had been ignored, challenged systems that had become comfortable with injustices, and called God's people back to covenant, compassion, and truth. While there are many male prophets who are prominent in scriptures, women too played pertinent prophetic roles. They did not write, they acted. They did not write, they acted. Women such as Miriam, a prophetess and musician, who led Israelites with song when they crossed the Red Sea. Anna, an elder widow and devoted prophetess who spent her days fasting and praying in the temple. And Deborah, a prophetess and protagonist who served in leadership and as a judge settling disputes for the Israelites and delivering God's command. As lawyers, as legal professionals, you don't only speak, you act. Perhaps nowhere is that prophetic mission expressed more clearly than in the words of prophet Ezekiel, who speaks on God's behalf to the shepherds of Israel. The weak you have not strengthened, the sick you have not healed, the injured you have not bound, the strayed you have not brought back, the lost you have not sought. And that's our call today, to seek and to accompany. This prophetic message is not simply an indictment. It is an examination of conscience. Whenever those entrusted with the care of others fail to protect them, fail to accompany them, or fail to create conditions in which they can flourish, we are called to ask ourselves difficult questions, not to condemn, but to convert. My hope is that this symposium will serve as a leaven, like yeast that a woman took and mixed into a large amount of flour until it worked through the dough. Not to merely name issues, concerns, or wrongs, but to ask and reflect with humility and courage. What is my role in safeguarding? And how can we contribute to building hopeful communities in our church and society where safety and care for all is a priority? I again repeat, we have to ask ourselves that hard question. And our work is not to condemn, to raise wrongs, to raise concerns, but to reflect with humility and courage. What can each one of us do? I would like now to weave our prophetic witness to the question of safeguarding. For me, safeguarding is not an administrative requirement that has been added to the life of the church or a religious institute. Nor is it simply a legal obligation or a policy manual sitting in a shelf. Safeguards are measures and interventions that protect people from harm, exploitation, or violence. Safeguards. Safeguarding is a gospel imperative, and we see that in the life of Jesus, reaching out to the most vulnerable, accompanying them, and restoring dignity to them. Every person we encounter is not simply someone we serve, but someone entrusted to our care by God. Safeguarding is one of the ways in which we live the commandment of love. Love of our neighbor, protect the vulnerable, and affirm that every person is created in the likeness and the image of God. In many African societies are deeply rooted in values, family, community, and mutual care. These are profound strengths of our culture that have sustained it in generations. Yet every culture, including our own ecclesial cultures, also contain practices and assumptions that must continually be purified by the gospel. Some forms of abuse remain hidden behind respect for authority, misunderstandings of obedience, economic dependence, or fear of bringing shame upon families and communities. Our prophetic witness called us to reject our cultures, but to allow the gospel to transform whatever diminishes the dignity of God's children. As we reflect on the vowed life in Africa and the challenges facing religious institutes and members, I invite us to extend grace, accompany one another, and explore ways to transform our meaningful cultures and provide solutions. What we are naming here is not unique to Africa when I talk of safeguarding. Recent research in Latin America confirms that both urgency and complexity of this work. Veronica Lacroso and Anne, in their study, Abuse in the Latin American Church, examines cases across 7 countries. They found that abuse crisis in the church and society is indeed a global phenomenon, not only in the Catholic Church. So we have to be attentive. Though it takes different forms depending on socio-cultural context. Recently, in a research in sacred walls or silent tombs, Clarence, a Jesuit priest in India, documents heartbreaking suicide among religious, those often entrusted with offering hope and accompaniment. The cases revealed urgent structural and personal safeguarding failures within families, institutes, and communities. A multitude of studies point out clericalism, cultures of silence, abuse of power, policy enforcement failures, economic deprivation, fear of retaliation, and the misuse of spiritual authority surface in many contexts, even as their local context expressions differ. What we are dialoguing and confronting in Africa, then, is not an exception to be explained away. It is our region's chapter in a story that the Universal Church is still learning to tell honestly. All we are on a learning journey. And this calls us to design for the gospel-centered leadership, deeper care for the vulnerable, and renewed commitment to human dignity, in line with the teachings of the magisterium and gospel imperative. I have come so that they may have life and have it in abundance. For each person entrusted to us, that is our call. Jesus came and calls us that I have come so that they may have life and have it in abundance. How then do we proceed in transforming our cultures, in the communities, in the societies, to bring into the cultures of healing? To help those we serve experience life in full, we need to reflect and interrogate cultural practices in ecclesial communities and society to understand the impact of abuse on individuals and those communities where we live. I remember hearing a deeply troubling story that illustrates how our cultural practices perpetuate an abusive culture without regard for the impact this has on human dignity, all the emotional, psychological, spiritual, and physical repercussions on an individual. The story is of a young girl aged 13 who had been sexually assaulted by an adult man. Rather than focusing on justice for the child and accountability for the perpetrator, community leaders proposed what they believed would restore balance. That another young 13-year-old female, relative of the perpetrator, should herself be assaulted by a member of the victim's family. Their intention was to restore equilibrium between the two families. Instead, they multiplied the violence and created another victim. That story has remained with me because it reminds us that culture, while rich in wisdom and tradition, must always be measured against the gospel. Violence can never heal violence. Justice can never require another innocent victim. Prophetic witness requires the courage to challenge cultural practices whenever they diminish the God-given dignity of women, children, vulnerable adults, or anyone entrusted to our care. Each of you hold a story that needs to be transformed. This raises a challenging question for each of us. What practices and assumptions in our own cultures, including in religious institutes, local communities, and ecclesial communities, do we need to examine and transform in light of the needs of our time? I encourage each of you to begin this journey of transformation by reading the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors annual reports. They come from all over the world. They provide insights of the issues we need to think about. I will reflect a little bit on the 2024 report. For example, it highlights myriad safeguarding challenges in Africa, including resistance from local authorities, weak national guidelines, limited provisions for survivor accompaniment, gaps in personal accountability, lack of safeguarding professionals, inadequate budget allocation for safeguarding, a lack of policies and implementation plan, and cultural and societal ills that perpetuate abuse, among others. Many countries in Africa still lack adequate dedicated resources for victim survivor accompaniment. This forum can serve as a catalyst to advance awareness and learning, the development of procedures and protocols, and the accompaniment of survivors within our own communities to help ensure the safety for all. I would like to focus on intersectionality of abuse, trauma, and creating a culture of love. As we all know, abuse does far more than wound the body. It fractures trust, isolates individuals, distorts the exercise of authority, and can profoundly alter a person's relationship with God, with community, and even with themselves. This is true whether abuse is sexual, spiritual, emotional, psychological, financial, or abuse of authority. Let me add one further dimension that belongs to our time. Safeguarding today also means preparing men, women, and men religious to engage responsibly with media and social media. What is posted, shared, or said online does not disappear. It can shape a sister's reputation, her ministry, and the credibility of her prophetic witness for years to come. Whenever power is used to diminish another person's dignity, rather than help it to flourish, something sacred has been violated. That's why safeguarding must never be reduced to responding only after the harm has occurred. Safeguarding is about creating cultures where harm finds no fertile ground. Safeguarding is about creating cultures where harm finds no fertile ground. It involves helping those in the formation recognize their woundedness, heal and mature so they can accompany others with compassion and authenticity. Handling Noah's concept of the wounded healer reminds us of that personal pain, when transformed through grace, can deepen empathy and become a source of healing for others. By embracing rather than concealing our brokenness, we help create an environment that nurtures healthy and faithful religious life. Our foundation, Conrad N. Hilton, once wrote, "Love one another, for that is the whole law. The peoples of the world deserve to be loved, never to be left to wander alone in poverty and darkness." These words have guided the foundation's work for decades. For me, these words have taken on new meaning through safeguarding, legal support, or other helping or healing ministries. People who have experienced abuse often describe not only the pain of what happened to them, but the loneliness that followed, the feeling of carrying their suffering in isolation, uncertain whether anyone would believe them, accompany them, or stand beside them. At times, the wounded, including a wounded sister, can only open up to any of us, or even to a lawyer, a teacher, or a counselor. And our invitation today is to discern and support these individuals to ensure they obtain the necessary help for healing. No person should be left to wander alone in darkness. My dear brothers and sisters, love in its Christian meaning is never passive. It creates safety, tells the truth, and accompanies. Love changes structures that allow harm to continue. The opposite of abuse is not simply the absence of harm. The opposite of abuse is the presence of justice, accountability, and communities where every person's dignity is protected. Throughout these days together, we will speak about policies, about protocols, about governance, about formation, about canon and civil law matters, reporting mechanism, survivor accompaniment, and accountability. All these are necessary. Indeed, they are indispensable. Yet, if safeguarding becomes a checklist of compliance, we will have missed the deepest purpose. We must discern how religious life today can accompany new members whose realities differ greatly from 30 years ago. Assessing when the members are entering, how is their woundedness, what were their experiences, and how do we support them in the journey of restoring dignity to complete healing so that they can go out and serve. Safeguarding is about whether our communities are places where every child, every sister, every vulnerable adult, young or old, every employee, every volunteer, and every person entrusted to our care knows that they are safe, respected, listened to, and valued. As the African proverb says, take care of the neck. Necklaces are not difficult to find. We are being called to prioritize the well-being and dignity of each person. Safeguarding is about creating cultures in which dignity is protected before it is violated, where leadership is exercised as service rather than privilege, and where accountability is understood not as punishment, but as an expression of our fidelity to the gospel. As Jesus says, "And this is the will of the one who sent me, that I shall lose none of all those he has given me, that I shall lose none of all those he has given to me." That is in John 6:39. Indeed, all of us, this is our call, to not lose any of those he has given to us because of our habits, cultures, practices, and omissions. Now, we know that changing culture is never easy. Culture is shaped for generations through habits, assumptions, and customs, and ways of exercising authority. It does not change because we write a policy or organize a workshop. And so are ecclesial cultures and practices. Culture changes when leaders model different behaviors, and leadership begins with each one of us in this plenary. I learned this a few years ago when I began working to support sisters in planning for aging and elder care. Some major superiors resisted the idea at first, even with clear research indicators. Yet within a few years, as the impact became visible, many of those same leaders came back asking to be part of the work stream. A no for me was not the answer, and is rarely the final word. A no is an invitation to keep proposing better questions or to take a detour to arrive at your destination. In safeguarding too, some leaders have insisted these concerns do not exist in their context until a crisis makes it possible for them not to look away. We should not wait for that crisis. Each of us can act now. Hold a safeguarding workshop, raise a question about initial or ongoing formation, put up a poster in the workplace, speak about what we post in social media, conduct a research study to attract action, or start the conversation. It is our life. And when our friends and families are injured through our inaction, it is the body of Christ that is wounded. It changes when communities begin to ask different questions. It changes when silence gives away, not to public exposures for its own sake, but to truth, transparency, and compassionate accompaniment. It changes when those who have experienced harm discover they will not walk alone. It changes when a group like CASLEP and all of us here start asking questions. What is the governance model? Where is your safeguarding policy? How can we accompany you? We will all create safe communities, safer church, safer institution where love is experienced to the full. It is not all gone. There are signs of hope, and that's what I would like to focus on right now. In the recent encyclical Magnificat Humanitas on safeguarding the human person, Pope Leo explains, mutual love and the desire for the common good should be guiding principles of all human action. As such, our actions, relationships, and engagement should promote compassion, goodwill, and harmony in our communities and workplaces. We are in this plenary because we believe each of us can do something to support the church, the religious life, and the people of God, and we can work to promote harmony where everyone can experience safety. For me, I have seen signs of that transformation in many places around the world. I have seen congregations invest in safeguarding formation from the very beginning, in both initial and ongoing formation. I have seen religious conferences invest in safeguarding formation for major superiors and leaders. I have seen Canon and civil lawyers working together to strengthen governance, reporting, investigation, and survivor support mechanisms. These are signs of hope. I have seen survivor support networks offering spaces for healing, like Tama in Congo. I have seen research endeavors helping unearth issues and trends, and academic institutions helping us move beyond assumptions to evidence-based responses that prevent abuse before it occurs. And I have seen sisters courageously asking difficult questions because they love their congregations enough to help them grow. I have seen the Pontifical Commission produce reports, listen and accompany leaders in safeguarding as an essential pastoral practice. I have seen foundations partnering together for us with Mission Oken and others to support religious life and the people of God. And I have seen the church, through the Holy Father, publicly apologize, offer a path of healing for survivors and moral accountability by acknowledging past failures. All these are signs of hope. At the Conrad M. Hilton Foundation, we have come to understand that safeguarding is not a single initiative. It is a way of exercising leadership and a way of demonstrating love by accompanying church entities, conferences, congregations, ministries, and individuals that work to break down barriers and leading to healing. Our partnership with many of the partners in this room supports listening through research that informs best practices and strengthens collaboration for a safer church and communities. We support grievances redressal initiatives in India, Kenya, and other places. We support sisters in the legal profession as a means of listening to accompany religious life and governance, and to strengthening safeguarding processes. We invest in supporting safeguarding formation at all levels. We invest in expanding survivor counseling networks to accompany survivors on their healing journey. And we convene individuals and organizations committed to this work so that no one carries this work alone. These are intentional steps toward building a culture of care, creating safe spaces, and accompanying survivors on a path toward the restoration of their dignity and wholeness. Safeguarding is not an obstacle to mission. It is an essential to mission. The mission of Jesus keeps on beckoning us to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to captives because of the pain they carry, to recovery of sight to those who are not seeing these issues, and to set prisoners free so that our people can live in fullness of life. This is our prophetic vocation. That mission of Jesus has not changed. Every safeguarding policy we develop, every leader we form, every survivor we accompany, every community we help become safer in one way or another, we are participating in Christ's own mission of liberation and healing and restoring dignity. My prayer is that this symposium will not simply deepen our knowledge, but strengthen our resolve to work together towards ensuring that safeguarding is integral in our work. I pray that we will continue to help us to reimagine the future of this forum and how to take it forward to serve the mission of the church, of religious life, and the people of God. I pray that may this conference inspire us to become true prophetic witnesses our church and our world needs at this time. Women and men who are not afraid to confront painful realities, who refuse to normalize what wounds human dignity, and who have the courage to build communities where every person is protected, respected, and loved. I look forward to the insight and partnerships that will emerge from this conference as we strengthen our communities, our ministries, and our church as places of faith, hope, and love. My hope is to see the outcomes of these days reflected in our own grant making at the Hilton Foundation. That we will continue to support sisters lawyers who are working together to strengthen governance systems within congregations and ministries that safeguard all. That we will collaborate with church entities to ensuring the prophetic witness of our church today and into the future. When the prophet Ezekiel challenged the shepherds for failing to strengthen the weak, heal the sick, bind up the injured, and seek the lost, he was also inviting them to become the shepherds God desired them to be. That invitation remains before us today, that we become true shepherds in the work God has called us to do. May we take the courage to answer this prophetic call. It is only then, and only then, we will be truly become what this symposium called us to be prophetic witness who share the living frames of God's love and true prophets of our time in the church and society. I invoke blessings. May the Holy Spirit guide our discussion and decisions. I invoke the intercessions of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother of the Church, to accompany us in this journey, because no one will make it alone. We have to work together. May God bless you.